What's good on, everybody? The Wizards have interest in Caris Levert and Immanuel Quickley. We're going to look at trade proposals for both players and chop it up real quick and talk about it. Next on Locked On Wizards.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. This is an official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/Locked On today to get started. So, as you know, the Washington Wizards have interest in Caris Levert of the Cleveland Cavaliers and Immanuel Quickley, who has been rumored before to be a target of the Washington Wizards. So we are going to get into some trade proposals for both. But let's go ahead and start with Caris Levert. Now, there were reports that the Washington Wizards are looking at acquiring Caris Levert of the Cleveland Cavaliers. So we went ahead and put together a trade proposal. And one popular trade proposal that put together through Trade Pros, which is Caris Levert coming to Washington, D.C. for Kyle Kuzma and Daniel Gafford. Now, it's a little tricky. Reason for that, looking at Caris Levert real quick, he's making $28.1 million a year. And if you look on the flip side, Kyle Kuzma is making about $13 million, but he is on a player option that he's expected to decline, so he should be making more. And Daniel Gafford is on $12.4 million going to the beginning of his extension. So I know there's a couple factors, E. You know, obviously with Kyle Kuzma, the chances are he's going to decline his player option and get more. But do you think Caris Levert should be a target? And do you think Kyle Kuzma and Daniel Gafford would work, or maybe Kyle Kuzma would a sign and trade? What do you think?
Caris Levert is an intriguing player. It's kind of random. It's not a guy that I would really think the Wizards would be interested in, but I get it if he's coming off the bench as a six-man scorer, because our bench was so bad last year after the Rui trade. We didn't get much production from it. Kendrick Nunn was a guy that they were looking to lean on for bench scoring, and he barely played. Will Barton was a guy who was supposed to come off the bench and fill it up and score, but he eventually ended up being bought out. He collected a lot of DNPs, barely got in there, barely played any games for the Wizards. So Caris Levert would be a guy coming off the bench, but I do think Kuz and Gafford is just too much. I know Fanspo right now, they don't let you really adjust the contracts, because I know Kuz is not going to be $13 million. It's going to go up. Caris Levert right now, he's making about $18 million per year. So if you did a player swap, I still wouldn't do it. If I were the Wizards, I really wouldn't trade for Caris Levert. I like Caris Levert a lot. I liked him a lot on the Pacers as well. He's a bucket getter. He's a scorer. He's definitely what we need off the bench. If we could get him as a bench scorer, and if they're trying to win around Bill and get players around Bill as a bench scorer, I think he would be great. But at this point right now, I just don't see them trading for. I think he's going to end up staying with Cleveland. Now, last year, looking at some of the numbers, just looking at some of his stats, he shot 39% from the three, which is really good, off of 4 attempts per game, which is what we need. We need more shooting. We need more scoring. We need more shot creation, guys that can get to the basket, create for themselves. He did struggle shooting the ball from the two, 43%. His mid-range game was one of his worst in his career as well. I think 39% is the best that he shot from the three-point line in his career. Yeah, it was by far 39%. And then 46% from twos was one of the worst, his second worst two-point shooting season. So right now, I wouldn't give up Gaff and Kuzma for Caris Levert. Now, looking at the Cavs and their trade that they just made for Caris Levert last year, or in I want to say it was the 2022 season that they just traded for him last year. They traded with the Pacers, so they gave up the Pacers gave up Caris Levert in a 2022 second round pick to Cleveland. Cleveland sent Indiana Ricky Rubio a first round pick in 2 seconds. So they basically essentially gave a lottery protected first. So personally, but yeah, I just wouldn't give up. I think you can get something better than that for Kuz, and I feel like you can possibly get a first round pick for Kuz, but I just feel like Gafford and Kuz would be a little too much. And it's kind of like the trade that I did for Terry Rozier on Bleacher Report, where I just had to put Kuz and Monte for Terry only to make the salaries match. Where if we give Kuz an upgrade in the contract, it would just be Kuz for Terry, and even that is a little bit of a reach right there, because I don't know how Terry really fit next to Bill. So right now, I don't see Caris really moving the needle for this roster at this point.
Yeah, to double check, man, because you're right. 18. I don't know why Tradespro had him for 28.1. But even with 18 mil, do you want to pay 18 mil to a guy as a 6-man? I don't know.
Right.
We were questioning Daniel Gafford with his extension, with the prospect of him being a backup center, depending on how the lineup is and depending on a lot of moves made in this offseason. But I like Caris Levert, but he's not a guy who wows you. He's not a guy that offense or defenses are kind of centered around. You know what I mean? He's kind of a guy where, he could play a little bit, but 18 mil, I don't know, man. I mean, and again, look at Kuzma, he's rumored to be anywhere from 15 to maybe 25 mil. So, do you sign and trade a guy? It's a tricky move, because I'm with you, man. I was very surprised to see that he was a target of the Washington Wizards because, what's going to happen with his roster is very unclear. Because again, 18 million for a guy at the 2-guard that, if we rebuild, maybe, if Bill's moved, which I don't think he's going to be moved, but if he's moved, maybe, but I don't see it happen, man. I think that I just don't see where he fits. Again, me personally, if I'm the general manager, I'm not paying $18 million for a guy who's a 6-man. I'm just not, if I'm paying him $18 million, he's going to start. And, really, if you're trading Kuzma, you can't play Levert at the 3, but he's more of a 2-guard. And again, Gaff, I'm not giving up Gaff, man. And from Cleveland's perspective, are you going to pay Gaff $12.4 million to be a backup? Because they already got Evan Mobley, they already got Allen. So, you're not going to pay guys on the bench that much money. So, yeah, looking at it, I don't know. I wouldn't be mad, but then again, it's just I don't see it how it happens, man, because I don't see where he fits. Kuzma there's a big if on Kuzma because, maybe it's a sign of trade for Kuzma straight up, but again, where do you play him? And it all comes back to the same thing. I'm not paying a 6-man $18 million, and I'm not giving up Gaff. I just think, I think Gaff does have value, but I don't see Cleveland, just the salaries and the timeline doesn't match for either team. So, yeah, I'm gonna say that it's gonna be a no for each side. So,
yeah, and I like Levert. Levert's a good player, man. He can ball, he can score. He was a big time scorer with the Pacers. 20 points a game in 2021 with the Pacers. 18 points a game in 2022 with the Pacers. Then got traded to Cleveland. His scoring went down because, of course, he's playing next to Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, so they're getting a lot of shots up. Evan Mobley, got to spread the wealth with him. Jared Allen. And then Brooklyn, he was a bucket getter too, 18 points a game with Brooklyn, 13 points a game. So he's had a solid career. Like, he's been a legitimate scorer. Last year, he had his second to worst season from the field, shooting 2 points with 46%. Then he had his best season in his career shooting 39% from the 3. So he did struggle. He had a couple stinkers in there. Like the first part of the year with Cleveland, it was rough for him shooting the ball, coming off the bench, just getting used to playing with Donovan Mitchell. So, but he had a really good playoffs. He played pretty well against the Knicks, but just here, he would be a 6-man behind Bill. And is it worth it to pay him that much money, 18 mil to be a 6-man? So I just don't think. I think the only way he comes here is in a 3-team trade. But yeah, right now I just don't see anything that we would be willing to give up just to bring him in. So I don't. It's weird. It's really weird that they're interested in him. I don't know how true it is, but I'm just intrigued to see what Michael Winger and Will Dawkins and Travis Schlenk, what they do to if they are trying to win this year. I'm just intrigued at what players are going to be targeting to build around Bradley Beal this year.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm with you. I just don't. Again, 18 mil for guys a 6-man. I like Levert. Don't get the twist. I do like him as a player. Like you said, he's a scorer. He can score. Just why bring him here to be a 6-man? I just don't see where it fits. Looking at Bradley Beal, how does, and that's the general question, because I believe that, Bradley Beal, if he's moved, is going to be at the deadline if we're not where he or the organization thinks we should be. But I think that the scoring record, he wants a scoring record. And I think they're going to give him a chance to see. And I think really both, they're going to give each other a chance. I think Bradley Beal, because he holds all the cards, is going to give them a chance to see if they can surround him with talent. And in the flip side, I think the organization is going to give him a chance, at least to the deadline. So it really comes down to the fit. Does he really fit beside Beal? And it just doesn't fit on the bench. So that's kind of where I'm at, man. I think we're both agreeing that it's just, unless you move on from Beal, and I get that because he can come in and be the starting 2-guard on a rebuilding and retooling team. But I just don't see Beal being moved till the deadline, if he's moved at all. So before we move on to the next trade, you got anything else you want to cover when it comes to Caris Levert?
No, that's it. We'll move on to Quickley.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Man, the fan favorite. Immanuel Quickley has been named a lot as a potential trade partner or trade target for the Washington Wizards. So we're going to talk about that next. But before we move on, today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure that every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With the eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure that every part you need fits just right the first time around. Just add your ride to my garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or not, or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. And thank you for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every day. Every day. Tomorrow we are going to chop it up with Locked On Hawks to talk about Travis Schlenk and maybe a little bit of DeJounte Murray and see if he could fit in DC. So definitely tune in tomorrow. So get into the next trade proposal. And I got a couple here for you. The first one we're going to look at is the Knicks sending Immanuel Quickley, Obi Toppin, and Hartenstein to the Washington Wizards in exchange for Monte Morris and Johnny Davis. And the second trade is actually the same players coming from New York, but the second trade proposal is Monte Morris, and instead of Johnny Davis, Denny Avia, which is sure to get a lot of love from the fan base. So looking at those trades, obviously Immanuel Quickley is a combo guard, but he has shown that he can run an offense and he can score at a high level. And again, he's a University of Kentucky guard, so I'm a little biased. Obi Toppin is a 4 who is athletic, and Hartenstein will be another big who is on an expiring contract. So would you make that move? Do you think the move moves the needle for this team? And out of the two proposals, which one do you think is the more plausible to happen?
I like the trade, honestly. Giving up Monte, who I just don't see a long-term future for here with the Wizards. He's got 1 year left on his deal. Johnny Davis, I like him, but honestly, it's going to take a long time for development with Johnny. You get back Immanuel Quickley, and you get back Obi Toppin, Isaiah Hartenstein, who would be a good backup big. The only thing is, I think the Knicks say no to this trade. I think they like Immanuel Quickley a lot. Immanuel Quickley was a guy that was in the running for a 6th man of the year, but I think the Wizards definitely should make that move for sure. They just don't have to give up much. And like I said, I think they're going to give Monte. I just don't see a long-term future here with Monte. Obi Toppin is really athletic. He's a guy that's been a solid pick, kind of like with Denny. He's just been a good rotational player, hasn't really peaked. But Quickley has really had some good moments in this league. I mean, the Wizards have had rumored interest in him, or legitimate interest in him in the middle of the season. There was a report that came up in the middle of the season. I pulled it up right here, but it was where it was them and the Bucks and a couple other teams. The Bucks, Mavericks, and Wizards have expressed interest in Immanuel Quickley. That was before the trade deadline in January. That was from NBA Central. Report came out from that. So the interest in Quickley is definitely legit from what I heard from the previous regime. I just don't know if Michael Winger, Will Dawkins, and Travis Schlenk once again have interest in this report was on Twitter this time from the NBA trade report that was circulating around there on social media. So I don't know how true this one is. But Quickley is a guy that can get to the paint, get to the basket. He's not a natural point guard, but he's more of a scoring point guard. He's looking to score. He can definitely get teammates involved. The second half of the year was really good for him when RJ Barrett went down. He ended the year with 14 points a game, 81% from the free throw line, 37% from three, shooting 5 threes a game. So he can shoot the ball, stretch the floor. He is a 3-level scorer. He's a bucket getter for sure. Got to the free throw line 3 times a game. So he would be an upgrade from Monte Morris for sure. And he's a guy that the Wizards really probably should have drafted in the first round. I gotta look at that draft again. Yeah, he was the 25th pick of the draft in the 2020 draft. So I mean, that would have been a little too high in the 2020 draft. So I'll take that back. But I think he would have been a great pick for the Wizards if they would have got him in the first round. But yeah, I like that trade. I just think the only thing is I think the Knicks say no to that because I think they really value Immanuel Quickley. There's a report that he's going to get paid after this year, that he's in the running to really get a large extension after his rookie contract. So I love Immanuel Quickley's talent. I love his talent.
Yeah, me as well. I'm a big fan of him, man. I know I'm biased. I'm a Kentucky guy, so he's a Kentucky guard. So I automatically like him. But, like you say, he can score. He's an automatic bucket getter. He is more of a scoring guard. So, he's going to push the pace. So
for sure.
I'm not too mad at that. Toppin, I compared a little bit to Denny outside of the athleticism, because obviously
He's
Toppin's
super
a
athletic.
Skywalker, man.
Yeah.
And I think out of the two proposals, the one I think that the likelihood of them saying yes to would be Monte and Denny, because I think Denny does have some value. Defensively, he's known to be a defensive guy. It's just adding those tools to his offensive tool bag. And with him going into a contract year, do they see him as a long-term fit in New York? That's a big question as far as the Knicks. So yeah, I'm with you. I think they say no, but I think that there is a little traction, because we've heard Immanuel Quickley, being a target of the Wizards going back to last year. So, he would be a welcome addition. Obviously, I know a lot of people, the first thing they're going to say is another combo guard. And I get it. You get PTSD from Spencer Dinwiddie and to a lesser degree, Monte Morris. But, but again, here's another thing. There's value in expiring contracts, especially for a team that's trying to contend like the Knicks. The fact that Monte Morris is an expiring contract where you really don't have to, really be tied to him long term. The same thing with Denny. You can play him, and if you don't think he's part of your long term vision, then let him walk, and then he can go get his bag somewhere else. But I do think there's value with Monte and Denny. I'm with you. I think the Knicks say no, but I think it's worth a try, because I think Immanuel Quickley is a guy who can score. He's a guy who's going to push the pace, and we desperately need to push the pace, man. I mean, we have been too stagnant as far as the offensive pace. And we need to find a guy who's going to collapse these defenses and really utilize shooters, man. We have not been able to really properly utilize shooters, because to me is this, because, every question and every potential move comes down to one basic fact, which is, how does this help Bradley Beal out? Because he's the guy, he's a franchise guy. And until he's moved, he's the guy, he's here. So you've got to kind of see where he fits next to Brad. So I think that a guard who could push the pace and find open shooters, because number one, I have the firm belief that if Bradley Beal goes back to being that scoring two guard and not being associated with trying to play make and not bring the ball up, actually find a point guard who's going to help set him up like John Wall did, then you could see him have a really good season. And I think that if he goes back to being that scoring two guard, Bradley Beal, and he's getting older, but I still think he could play at all-star level. It's just finding a point guard who can utilize his strengths as a shooter. He's just not the guy that needs to bring the ball up. We said it time and time again, bounce the ball off his foot. It's just not his forte. So, a guard who can push the pace, I'm not going to be mad. But, you got to look at every deal and say, what do the Knicks look at it from their perspective? And, Johnny Davis, man, I mean, we see more value out of him than most organizations because we drafted him. And, we have that task of trying to get him going. And, I think that, with confidence, he can be a good player in this league. Is just, is a team going to be willing to take that time to develop him? We are more inclined to do it because we drafted him. The Knicks, they don't have that, they don't, what I mean? Like we want to develop him because we drafted him, but they're not going to have that loyalty like we are. So, to look at a guy who's a developmental piece, I don't see it happening. So out of the two, man, I think that Denny and Morris could be the most plausible one. But again, I think they have a conversation, but I think at the end of the phone call, they hang up. So,
yeah, I think so too. Now, if they're looking to bring in Quickley and Toppin to try to win around Bill, that doesn't move the needle much at all. It makes them a better team. But once again, you're kind of looking to play in. You're kind of looking at really either out of just not making the playoffs or really just making the play. And looking at Quickley, some of his numbers too. He had some really good games towards the end of the year. He had 38 against Boston, 26 against Portland. Portland was a bad team at the time. 26 against the Clippers. He had 40 against the Rockets, who were awful, on March 27th. 38, like I said, against Boston. I don't know if Tatum and Brown played in that game, but he had 38 in double overtime against the Celtics. So just box score watch, and he put up some really big numbers in the second half of the year for sure. 23 points against Boston again. So he's a Celtics killer. Looks like he's a Celtics killer, which I love that. Because I can't stand the Celtics. But, Quickley, he's a young, up-and-coming, talented player. I do like Obi Toppin. I do like his athleticism. He is an athlete and a half. He can play above the rim. Drafted right before Denny, if I'm not mistaken, or right after. They were like right next to each other in the draft, like pick 9 and pick 10. But, he struggles to shoot three. But he's a jack-of-all-trades guy, too, talented player, but just hasn't really tapped his potential yet. But if they're looking to rebuild, then of course you may look at like Bradley Beal for Toppin Quickley a first round pick, Barrett, and then you have to throw in Evan Fournier to make salaries match. So that's something that you're really rebuilding. You look at that, you get the 2024 first round pick back. That's something that we talked about on Bleacher Report too, where you just trade Bill for a bunch of guys from the Knicks, Quickley involved, Toppin involved, Barrett involved, Fournier, and you get your pick back, the 2024 first round pick. Maybe throw in another first round pick for Bill. If the Knicks really, really want him, and that would help the Knicks out because they would have like Julius Randle, Jalen Brunson, and Bradley Beal and Mitchell Robinson, and they would try to make another playoff run. But so I don't know. Winger and Dawkins are looking at Toppin and Quickley in a rebuild kind of thing where they're just trying to blow it up. And Brad says, I'm ready to move on, and the Knicks are interested in Bradley Beal. So you can look at it from both ways. If they're trying to win, these guys don't move the needle. But if you're trying to rebuild and you want to get your pick back, the 2024 pick that is protected, then I think those guys are a possibility to bring in for a possible rebuild.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, but here's the thing is that if you look at a lot of the comments that they're making, this is what I firmly believe. If I'm going to predict how the offseason and this oncoming season happens, I think that Brad, number one, wants that scoring record. And two, I think that, they're going to look at what they can do. They're going to have 1 year. And both sides are going to see, hey, they can surround me from Bill's perspective? Can they surround me with talent? And from Winger's perspective, is it plausible to carry this contract forward? But it all depends, because a lot of people are fighting for jobs. A lot of people have 1 year to get it together. Western Cell's another name. There's a lot of people on this roster that are fighting for jobs right now. So again, it comes down to vision. I think that looking at comments made with the press conference and coming forward, obviously rebuild is an option, but coming into the situation right now, you're evaluating and you're analyzing what fits, what doesn't fit. So I think that's what they're going to carry forward as far as what the vision is forward, because I don't think they're going to come in and say, oh, all right, everybody's gone. What's going to roll with nothing? It's just because we do have a foundation. It's just who fits the long-term vision. They're going to look at the young guys and look at, so there's a lot of factors. So I get that. So, so before we move on, because we're going to talk about some coaching moves that happened with the Wizards. But before we move on, do you have anything left with the trading?
No, that's it. Michael Scotto from Hoops Hype is the guy that brought up the interest for the Wizards being interested in January. So that's the source that came up with that. Maybe the Twitter tweet, that's probably where it came from that. And then I found one small stat, and then we'll get to it. But just to piggyback off what you said, and then we'll quickly get to the last part. I think I don't think they're going to blow it up at this point. I think they're going to still try to retool and try it one more year. And then I think if things go really bad by the trade deadline, that's when they pull the trigger. And then maybe Brad's just fed up and he's like, okay, yeah, it's time to move on. Quickley was in the 96th percentile in points per possession as the pick and roll ball handler. So that's something that he does really, really well, handling the ball. But let's get on to the last part, talk about these coaches. Before we do that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Of course, right now, the NBA Finals is going on right now. I think it's going to be the last game of the year. I think this is going to be it. So as we speak, the Heat are actually winning 24-22. The Heat are just so weird. They always win when their backs are against the wall, which just makes no sense to me. I think the Nuggets really should just close this game out, but we'll see what happens. But FanDuel is a great place to put wagers in. Make a fast break to FanDuel during the NBA Finals, because right now new customers can get a no-sweat first bet up to $2,500. That's $2,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. There's no better place to bet, place to bet all of the NBA Finals action than on America's #1 sportsbook. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get a no-sweat first bet up to $2,500. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Brandon. So who are some of the coaching hires? I know Mike Williams from the Capital City Go-Go. I know he's moving on. So Josh Roberts tweeted out this morning. He said, losing Mike Williams is a blow for the Washington Wizards /Go-Go, but it's also positive since Mike Williams has earned an opportunity to take the next step in his career. Williams Go-Go general manager Amber Nichols and the Go-Go staff have helped players such as Jordan Goodwin develop. So, and then you see what happened with Chris Dunn. He went to the Jazz and he played really, really well. I thought that was a guy that the Wizards should have just brought up anyway. But he had a heck of a season with the Jazz to end the season. So what are your thoughts about Mike Williams leaving the Capital City Go-Go?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too concerned, but like you said, they've done good work with Capital City Go-Go, man. I mean, they, Chris Dunn revitalizing his career, getting Jordan Goodwin a contract, and you can attribute, Johnny Davis and him improving, It has a lot to do with the Capital City Go-Go. So, I'm not alarmed, but obviously he's finding opportunity elsewhere. But he's part of that. You got to give a lot of credit to Capital City Go-Go, man. Their ability to get these guys to perform at the NBA level. Because look, if not last year, the year before, when we dealt with a lot of COVID injuries, the people being on the COVID protocol, these guys were able to come up and play good minutes quick. So that's a testament to the Capital City Go-Go. So yeah, it's tough to see somebody leave, but again, they're doing a good job down there at Capital City Go-Go. But I know there was another hiring and firing, but not, I don't know if it was a firing, but a hiring. This is from Neil DeLaw. And it says the Wizards hired Samuel Gelfand as an analytics assistant coach after letting Dean Oliver go earlier this offseason. Gelfand was the Pelicans senior director of basketball analytics last season and with the Pistons and Warriors prior to that. So, looking at that, we said it before, that I'm not one of these guys that think that you need to, analytics should be the one mode of, evaluating talent, but it should be a tool in the tool bag at evaluating talent. So again, this is another move that this front office has made that, they're really getting modern. They're really bringing the best people for the job to really do this right, to really find the right pieces through the draft, through free agency, through the draft, or trade. Sorry, I said the draft twice. To really evaluate talent. This is an under the radar move, but I think that this is a really good move going forward because analytics should be part of it, should not be the whole thing. This ain't the Oakland A's with Billy Bean. Man, look, you got to have different avenues to evaluate talent, but I think this is the right move. But so what do you think? You think how important do you think this is bringing analytics more into evaluating talent?
Yeah, I think it's a young way of thinking. Will Dawkins is 36, 37 years old. Michael Winger is 46. So Travis Schlenk is the old guy of the bunch, but you're really bringing in some young, innovative minds, a new way of thinking. And I love it. Basketball, the game has changed. It's changed to 3-point shooting. You got big men shooting threes. So the game has changed. They phased out the mid-range game. And people still shoot mid-range shots, of course, but it's really just 3-and-D, 3-pointers and layups. That's what they want. You want to, if you're looking to run and gun and push the pace and just looking at numbers that work for the team, just little stuff like that. Corner threes, like what's Corey Kisper's best shot? You want to get him more shots in the corner, or what's Daniel Gafford's best post-up side or pick and roll side? Just little things like that. Just looking at numbers, percentages. Bradley Beal, where can we get him the ball? Where does he work best in the clutch so we can get him in situations where he doesn't dribble the ball off his foot? Just little situations like that. They can look up some numbers and stuff like that and try to get people in a better situation, even defensively. What defensive sets work? So, and they've been doing that stuff over time. So those are just some examples I can think of in my head. But yeah, there's some young, innovative guys trying to start up some new things. And I like it a lot. I love it. So this guy, Sammy Gelfand, just looking at his history and his job history, he has a LinkedIn profile as well. So that shows how young he is too. So he was a senior director of basketball analytics with the Pelicans, director of coaching operations with the Pistons in 2018, 2019, coordinator of basketball analytics for the Warriors in 2013, 2014. To 2017, 2018. So he might have been there when Michael Winger, I'm not Michael Winger. He might have been there. Yeah, he was there when Travis Schlenk was there. So maybe Travis Schlenk put in a word. That's when the Warriors won a championship around that time, 2017, 2018. So he's got some championship pedigree there, working with staff, working at Clay. Of course, they're the darlings of analytics. So they're the guys who started to just shoot a whole bunch of threes, and they basically changed the league with 3-point shooting. Stephen Clay, and then he was a draft preparations coordinator for the Golden State Warriors in 2012, 2013. Director of player personnel with the Santa Cruz Warriors. So this guy, he's worked a lot, man. He's worked his way up in the league, so I'm happy to see him get a position with the Wizards. And then we fired an analytics guy, so we're bringing this guy on. I want to say they let go Dean Oliver. So this guy, Samuel Gelfand, has a good resume. So they let go Dean Oliver earlier this offseason. So he's going to be Dean Oliver's replacement. So he's got some good things on his resume. So I'm intrigued to see if he can come in and help this team out for years to come.
How they gonna get rid of your cousin like that, man? I mean, but I'm with you, man. And it's something that you said that really rings true, man. And I think that was really on point, man, which was finding a way to help Brad. Which is because, all right, you got two options here, right? I know that with new management, there's a lot of people to think that you should go ahead and try to trade him, but you also got to understand that he could stay here long term. So saying that, putting him in the best position to succeed is another thing that his front office is looking at. Bringing analytics into it. Really evaluating talent, really bringing the best talent, whether it's through the draft, through free agency, or through the trade market, of putting Bradley Beal in the best position to succeed. And I think that is competency in the front office. Because number one, by bringing these type of people into the staff and into the front office, you have options. If you want to rebuild, you have a whole front office full of guys that know how to evaluate talent. So you can rebuild. You can start fresh but if if Bradley Beal going forward is that guy long term, which is an option, which is a realistic option, mind you, then putting him in the best position to succeed is something that this does. Because surrounding him with competent talent, especially young talent, because look, obviously with the salary, a lot of the talent that we're going to be looking to bring in is going to be young talent. So you got to evaluate that. And analytics, like I said, I'm not one of these people that think that analytics is the sole tool that you use to evaluate talent, because I know it's not just basketball, baseball, you got your traditionalists going against analytical type of people and then they clash over the years, especially baseball where you hear, some people can just evaluate talent based off the sound of the crack of the bat as opposed to somebody looking at numbers. And the same thing with basketball, the old school people know, just know from body language how to evaluate guys. But analytics do have a place in the modern NBA. So this is just another move that this shows how competent this front office is. You have a lot of talent, a lot of dogs in this front office, man. You got guys who know how to make those aggressive moves, know how to find those gems, those diamonds in the rough in the draft. So, I think this is just another great move by this front office, man. So, go ahead.
Oh, last one I'll say, Will Dawkins, he talked about how the draft, it starts for them 3 years ago. They've been scouting guys for years and years, especially with Sam Presti getting all these picks. He's loading up on picks in like 2029 and 2028. So they're looking at guys who are in high school or eighth graders. They've been scouting guys for years. Like they scouted Jalen Williams for years before he even entered the draft. And even for guys like Porzingis, and just looking at, why do we blow so many 15-point leads? You're looking to analytics for that too. What are we doing wrong? Are there some numbers that show that they need to pick it up? Of course, there's numbers showing that they need to pick it up in the fourth quarter. Like what's going wrong? Why is Porzingis only scoring in the first quarter, and then the second or the third and fourth quarter, Porzingis puts up 25 to 30 points in the first quarter and second quarter, first half, but we're only getting 2 to 5 points from Porzingis. So are there some numbers that we can punch in? We're going to be like, hey, we need to get the ball to Porzingis more. And that's just, like you said, that's just the eye test too. You don't really need to look at numbers, but it's just a modern NBA. It's 2023. So everything in life now has some type of numbers attached to it.
But I think right before we move, man, I'm going to say this. Something jumps out at me, and this is what the organization is saying to Bradley Beal and Wes Unseld Jr., which is we are putting every tool imaginable at your disposal. So the ball's in your court. We're bringing in the front office where they're bringing every tool, every avenue to surround you with talent and to make this team better. But we have to perform. And so this is it. They have to perform this year because they've done a good job bringing the right pieces in as far as the front office and scouting and analytics, but they got to perform. There's no excuses anymore. They have to, Wes Unseld, he's got to make those adjustments. And Bradley Beal, look, they are trying to build around him. Obviously that's the first choice. Now, we both believe that, if they start out bad, if the franchise is not where they want to be towards the trade deadline, I do believe that Bradley Beal will waive his no trade clause. But right now, Bradley Beal is a franchise player, and finding every avenue, every tool, everything you can do to surround him with talent and make his job easier being that franchise guy, I think they're going to do. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up, guys. But definitely a lot of news. This front office is starting to look very, very sexy, man. So I'm just saying it's looking good, man. So we're going to go ahead and roll. Thank you guys for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every day. Every day is tomorrow on the show. We are going to chop it up with Jarvis Davis and Locked On Hawks, man, and talk about Travis Schlenk and a little bit of DeJounte Murray, man, and whether he could be an option here in the 202. So definitely appreciate y'all, man, on YouTube. Definitely like, subscribe, comment below, and wherever you get your podcast, 5-star review would be much appreciated. So again, appreciate y'all and peace.